As soon as the chopper touched down in Havana, we were met by several of Gideon's men who had traveled here from the Dominican Republic, as well as a Colonel Santiago, Havana's chief of police. Apparently, the islands were hypersensitive to Gideon and his men movements. Colonel Santiago was the nervous type. He wore a suit that was wrinkled and at least 2 sizes too big, which was a huge feat for his short, pudgy body. The stiff smile on his face spoke volumes. He was either afraid of us or the big wolf that shadowed Gideon's every step. His eyes kept shifting back and forth between us and it. Senor Gideon, to what do we owe this great honor of your visit? And look, you've brought your pet. He fell into step with the 4 of us as we carried our duffel bags to the 2 joint light tactical vehicles that awaited us. Gideon chuckled. Vacation. The colonel wiped his sweaty brow with his handkerchief before putting it back into his vest pocket. You know, I would never get in your business, senor, but I have to ask, what's in the bags you carry? Gideon held up the duffel that was in his hand. This? Nervously, the police chief nodded. Oh, this is nothing, mi amigo. Just my swimming trunks and a little light reading to enjoy while I sit back and work on my tan. Hell, if I wasn't worried sick about my wife, that would have been funny to me. Teeny fell into step next to me, and together we studied Gideon's men who were dressed like us in tactical gear. These were the goons of the tropical islands, no doubt. No wonder the chief of police was sweating blood. Shalom, one of the men said, who wore only a bulletproof vest with several dents in it for a shirt. Man, we sorry to hear about Monroe, he continued. A shadow came over Gideon's face. He shook his head slightly. Man, I miss my boy something fierce, he muttered. The man nodded. He in our prayers, Ak. Gideon stared off into the distance for a moment before he seemed to get a hold of himself. Lee, let me introduce you to a real good Ak, Caleb. He put his hand on my shoulder. Caleb, this is my oldest friend, Lee. I shook hands with the man. Shalom, Ak. Shalom, he responded. The nervous colonel took all this in. He stood practically wringing his hands as he waited for Gideon to give him his attention. Teeny and I loaded our bags in the trunk. You see, I didn't care what his problem was. I wasn't leaving this island without Monica. If I had to tear it down with my bare hands, then so be it. The colonel can work with me, or he can be destroyed like everybody else who stands against me. I slid into the passenger seat of the first vehicle. Teeny got in behind me. Lee got in the back seat next to him. Danny and the rest of the men got into the second truck. Gideon was now saying something to the fat man in rapid Spanish as he held the back door open so that his pet could jump in, before placing his bag next to him. Then he slid in behind the wheel. The colonel put his hands on the door, stalling him from closing it. Okay. Just do me a favor and keep it to the minimum. Last time you were here, I nearly drowned in paperwork. Gideon slammed the door before putting the truck in gear. See, I was praying for strength, not to reach past him and choke the hell out of this little man. Every second wasted was a second my wife could be going through y'all knows what at the hands of y'all knows who. But when I find out who, may y'all have mercy, cause I won't. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just here to enjoy the Habana nights, Gideon growled before he stepped on the gas, nearly dragging the man with him. Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of, he yelled after us.
Dancing has always been a way for me to lose myself within myself. It was easy for me to tune out all those that watched and danced as if my life depended on it. I opened my limbs, giving them free rein to coal and glide across the stage. In my mind, I pirouetted through the streets of Havana nights. I became the petal of a rose as it drifted with the breeze along the earth. I became the wings of a swan as it did its regal dance of flight. I became the end of a painter's brush as it caressed the empty canvas with its colorful touch. Where I abide, no man could come. It was just me and Grace, intertwined in a dance as old as time. At some point, the music came to an end and I was forced to open my eyes. The small group of men before me sat staring at me with their mouths agape. Rashid blinked, coming out of his reverie first.
Damn,
he muttered from where he sat next to the one they called Dominique, who could be the poster boy for a Latin drug lord. With his fleur-de-lis patterned silk shirt, to the gold chains, rings, and the watch he wore around his wrist, his long curly black hair was slicked back to his head to hide the fact that he was balding on top. It looked as if, at one point in time, he took good care of his body, but had slowed down in his older age. The little pooch in his stomach testified to that. He had a sharp gaze that missed nothing. It was that gaze that now raked over my body, leaving me feeling cold on the inside. He lifted his ring-studded hand and began to clap, looking to his left and then his right, giving a signal that his men should clap also.
Si, señorita.
He clapped Rashid on the back.
You are offering me a woman worth more than you owe.
The smile that appeared on Rashid's face was one of great relief. He looked up at his boys who stood to the side, surrounded by several of Dominique's men, looking as nervous as I felt. They didn't share in his relief, and I guess I didn't blame him. Dominique was not a stable individual. He had an air of trickery about him.
Nothing but the best for you. When I saw her walking down the street, I knew she needed to become a part of your famous collection.
Rashid told him, speaking with more confidence now that he knew Dominique was pleased with his gift.
You saw her walking down the street, you say?
Rashid nodded.
Yup, and I grabbed it as soon as I saw her.
Dominique lifted his hands.
Come! Bring...
He looked at Rashid.
Hennessy? Is that what you black boys drink, Hennessy?
The nervous veil fell back around Rashid.
Nah, man, I'm good.
Dominique hit his shoulder again.
Nah, man, I insist.
He did a bad interpretation of a hood accent, causing his men to laugh. Rashid's two friends wore stiff smiles on their face that did not reach their eyes as they were forced to tolerate this man's blatant racism. Something had shifted in the air. I still stood there in the center of the stage, breathing heavy from my routine because nobody told me to move. This gonna sound crazy, but I was beginning to feel sorry for Rashid and his friends.
Let us toast to the men who brought war to my shores.
Dominique's voice rang out. Suddenly, the two guards that stood on both sides of Rashid's friends pulled out a gun and shot them both in the head. I brought my hand to my mouth, stifling the scream as I watched their bodies fall to the ground.
What the f?
Rashid yelled, jumping up from his chair. The big Hispanic man that stood behind him grabbed him by the shoulders and slammed him back in it, hard. Where you going, homie? We got to pour out some liquor for the niggas that ain't no here, Dominique said, continuing to speak in his fake hood accent. He laughed with his men before his eyes got real serious.
You don't think I know this is your brother's wife?
He spat.
I'm making my business to learn all there is to know about my enemy. I know about his wife. I know about his child. And I know you're a little jealous brat that did everything within your power to take away his happiness.
He lifted his glass in the air before his lecherous gaze came back on me.
Well, I accept it.
His words caused my skin to crawl. I wrapped my arms around my stomach. I think I was going to be sick. Right then, one of his men rushed in and said something in his ear.
What?
He growled, coming to his feet.
He's here?
The man nodded, speaking in rapid Spanish. And whatever he said got everybody moving swiftly.
Bring her,
Dominique said, gesturing towards me. Moments later, I was lifted off my feet from behind. I began to struggle. Who was here? Caleb? Dear Yah, was Caleb here? Help! I yelled before he covered my mouth with his smelly hand.
Yo, what about me?
Rashid asked. In all the mayhem, Nobody did or said anything to him. Dominique halted at the door his men were bustling him out of, turning back to look at him.
You have gifted me with your brother's wife. Consider your debt paid. She's worth that and more.
A wicked grin came to his face.
You're free to go. However, I don't know how far you'll get. Caleb just touched down in Habana.
Rashid's eyes rounded in fear. Dominique held his head back and laughed as he continued out. The last thing I saw before I was carried out the door behind him was the back of Rashid's head as he disappeared out the exit door on the other side of the room. The male guard carried me to the limo Dominique had just disappeared in and practically threw me into it. The car took off instantly. As soon as I landed on the seat, I was roughly snatched up by Dominique into his lap. "Get your hands off me," I yelled as I began to struggle with him. He was very strong, and judging by the smile on his face, he was enjoying this. "Oh, come on, señorita. Let me make you forget about your husband." He grabbed my breast so hard it brought tears to my eyes. I yelled out, bucking in his arms. The next thing I knew, he and I both were flying off the seat. Somebody had rammed the back of the limo. The next few minutes seemed to fly by in a blur. Dominique scrambled back up on the seat, yelling for his driver to go faster as he put his seatbelt on. I pulled myself up just in time to see what looked like an army tank truck or something cut hard to the right. My heart dropped. They were leaving me. "Wait! Don't leave me!" I yelled. Just then, the limo turned sharply to the left, sending me slamming into the door, hard. I turned around and I put my seatbelt on. Then I closed my eyes and prayed for y'all to bring them back. I didn't understand why they left. When I opened them, Dominique was smiling at me from across the seat looking like the devil. "When this is over and your husband is dead, I'm going to take immense pleasure in sampling what he gave his life for." "You crazy. It's you that's gonna die," I cried as the car made another sharp turn. You know what? I take that back. I'm pretty sure the driver of the limo was gonna kill us both. I couldn't help but sigh in relief when after about another 5 minutes the car rolled through the opening gates of what had to be Dominique's palace before coming to a stop in front of a huge statue. I gazed up at it through the window and I would have laughed if I wasn't so frightened. It was a statue of Dominique sitting on top of a huge war horse, and it just looked ridiculous. Whoever designed it tried their best to make him look like some kind of general instead of a racist drug lord. "Let me go!" I yelled as he dragged me out of the car, pulling me into his house.
Nobody gets past the gates,
he told his men, who were all running with their guns to take up their positions.
"Come on, my little ballerina. You can dance for me while your husband and his homies get shot up."
He laughed at his own bigotry.
We parked the truck a few blocks into Edgar's, Dominique's rival's turf. When he found out Gideon was here for his arch enemy, he became more than willing to assist in any way we needed. Aki Daniya slipped out of the second truck with his sniper rifle attached to his back and disappeared into the night like smoke. Now we waited, although it was killing me inside. When I saw them carry Monica out of that club kicking and screaming, I damn near lost my mind. Gideon had to reach over the seat and physically restrain me from jumping out the truck, a task he would not have accomplished if he didn't have the strength of Samson. He killed the engine and hit a button on the dashboard that brought up a monitor. On the monitor was a split screen. Mouse, Lion's hacker, showed on one half of the screen. He was typing away on his laptop from what looked like his couch. And Felix, Gideon's hacker, showed up on the other half of the screen. He sat behind his computer in what he so fondly called the tech lab at the armory. "Alright, what y'all have for us?" Gideon asked. settling back in his seat. Good job on alerting Dominique to your arrival. He did exactly what I wanted him to do, which is to gather all his soldiers that was so nicely spread out before into one place. They are all behind his wall to keep his royal high ass safe, thus making our job easier, Mouse said as his fingers flew over the keys. I'm sending heat coordinates to each of your phones, he continued. However, Felix made an annoyed sound, clearly unhappy with their plan. Really? Man, you still going through with the little red dots? Didn't you learn anything from nearly getting everybody killed the other day when your little red dots picked up more than human beings? Damn dots picked up everything from roaches to birds. Felix. Your selective amnesia is kicking in again. Must I remind you? Had you cut the lights in time we discussed, my heat sensors would not have gotten tangled. He held up his hands. You had one job, bruh. One job. Man, they heat sensors, not light sensors. I exhaled, tuning them out as I prayed for patience. Before today, I had found the dynamics of Lion and Gideon's relationship quite fascinating as well as entertaining. Somehow, the two had managed to become best friends without really caring all that much for each other. And that pretty much equated to them arguing all the time. Shlomo told me that they used to physically fight each other years ago. And because their strengths were pretty much equal, they destroyed more stuff than they could pay for. So these days they scaled it back from throwing blows to engaging in verbal battle. Man, these cats argued over everything from how to throw a proper punch to how to spread mayonnaise on the bread. I kid you not. And somehow their working relationship has trickled down to their men as well. They had identical teams that worked well together, but like Lion and Gideon, they argued all the time. Until this moment, I had been amused by it. Now, I was ready to put my fist through the monitor. I came, Gideon said, interrupting both of them. You don't feel the violent energy coming from this young brother next to me. If we don't hurry this up, I might have to physically restrain him again. Something I do not enjoy doing. Mouse cleared his throat. As I was saying before, I was so rudely interrupted. Felix grunted, but amazingly did not rise to the bait. Look at your phones. My phone dinged in my pocket. I pulled it out and was not surprised to see that Mouse had complete control of it. The floor plan of Dominique's mansion appeared on the screen. Inside the surroundings of the house was about, 50 red dots. Each of those dots is a live body. Do you see the blue dot? Mouse asked. One of the dots amongst the sea of red turned blue. That's Lady Caleb. So be mindful of how you use your toys around that dot. Dania, can you hear me out? He asked. Loud and clear, bruh. Daniel's voice came from the speaker. Okay, boys. If we do this in the order I say, we'll be home in an hour. Dania, let me know when you're positioned. 10-4. I've been looking for the best way to enter this place. Outside of the front gate, there is no other way in. It's damn near as secured as the armory. Felix supplied. Gideon grunted. I doubt that, he muttered. How we gonna get in? I asked, losing patience. Both Gideon and Mouse told me to be calm at the same time. Mouse said it over the loudspeaker, and Gideon with a hand gesture. I grinded down on my teeth. You see, it was easy for them to say that, but I wonder how calm either of them would be if it was their wives in there with that maniac. Right when I was about to say, to hell with it and find my own way in, Daniel's voice came over the speaker. I'm in position. Alright, bruh. You know how this goes. The red dots are your targets. One at a time, the red dots turn green, indicating death. I could hear the whisper from Daniel's rifle as he began to lay him down. Gideon, when I say Drive towards that gate at full speed. It's the only way in. Congratulations, my brother. We're gonna have to do this one the way you do it best. Slicing stuff up with a hammer. Yeah, Gideon muttered before he revved the engine.
I slid from in between Dominique's clinging hands, pushing him away as I smiled at him. I have a special dance for you. Do you want to see it? I purred, praying my voice didn't crack and give me away. See, I needed to buy some time, and he was all hands, and I couldn't stand him touching me. With a huge grin on his face, he nodded, sitting back on the plush couch facing me. I did my best impression of Jessica Rabbit as I sashayed to the bar across the room, putting as much distance between us as I could. Taking my time, I climbed on top of the bar like I had seen Tyra Banks do in the movie Coyote Ugly. Two of his guards stood, guns in hand, by the entrance, smiling at me. I had to ignore them or I was going to lose my nerves.
Oh yes, sexy lady,
Dominique growled, rubbing his hand over his private area. I threw up a little bit in my mouth. I kid you not. It took everything within me to continue with my act, when what I really felt like doing was balling up in the fetal position and just crying. I put my hand on my hip and I winked at him. Well, if I'm gonna dance, I'm gonna need some music, silly. He raised his hands and clapped them together, and I nearly jumped out my heels when Khaleesi's milkshake began to play from somewhere out of the state-of-the-art ceiling. My mask slipped. Are you serious? With the rascal grin still on his face, he nodded as he began to bob to the beat.
See, hot mama.
I rolled my eyes as I began moving half-heartedly to the music. You couldn't make this stuff up. I felt like I was stuck in a horrible, twisted dream. What was up with this guy? Either he had a lot of confidence in his security team, or he was a fool that was easily distracted, because he seemed to have forgotten my husband was here to kill him.
If you're wondering why I don't seem to be in the least worried about your husband, it's simple. My house is a fortress. There's only one way in, and if he comes that way, he's already dead.
He grinned at me as he lifted his drink to his mouth, still bopping to the beat.
I'm a big fish, senora. You don't become a big fish unless you rule the...
Man, whatever he was about to say got drowned out by the sound of a loud boom. A great wind swept through the room filled with glass and debris. The whole front of the house had just been blown to pieces. I put my hand over my ears as a loud, rapid gunfire filled the room as his guards began to shoot towards that direction. Several more of Dominique's men ran inside, but something rolled in front of them. They looked down, realizing too late what it was. It exploded, sending their body parts flying all over. An ear landed on the bar at my feet. I fell to my knees, fighting not to throw up, but ended up screaming because my hand touched it. Dominique jumped up from the floor that he had dived to during the explosion, running towards me. His last few remaining men supplied cover fire for him, but it seemed as if they were dropping one at a time. He snatched me off the bar by my hair. I cried out, struggling to remain on my feet. One of his guards said something to him in Spanish, and he took off running toward the back of the house, still pulling me by my hair. Another loud explosion rocked the building, and some of the ceiling began to fall around us. While looking back toward the gunfight that was happening in the other room, Dominique opened the back door. Suddenly, Caleb dropped from the roof, landing softly in front of us. I had never seen him looking so deadly. Time seemed to slow down. See, Dominique had not yet seen him because he was too busy looking at the immediate threat behind him. He turned around just as Caleb raised his gun, pointing it directly at his head. Impossible was all he was able to get out before a single shot filled the kitchen. His body did not hit the floor completely before I was stepping over it, jumping into Caleb's arms. I think the sudden impact of my body against his had taken him off guard because he had to take several steps back. I cradled his face and I just started kissing him all over. I was so happy to see him.
You alright?
He asked, holding me in his strong arms. No, I told him, continued to cover his face with kisses. He squeezed me tighter. Behind us, the gunfight continued, but none of that mattered at this moment. It was just he and I.
I was so scared, Shorty. I ain't never been so scared in my life,
He whispered. Me too. I didn't think you was gonna find me. He cupped my face, staring into my eyes.
I told you. I'ma always find you, no matter what.
When his lips took mine, a floodgate of emotions washed through me. I wrapped my arms around his neck as he deepened the kiss. I missed him so much. I needed him so bad. I groaned as I pressed my scantily clad body against his, just wanting to feel all of him.
Babe, you can't kiss me this way.
He groaned when I broke away from his lips and started kissing his neck. I don't know what was wrong with me. I forgot all about his fast. At that moment, I just needed him.
Well, damn.
A dry voice came from behind us.
No, don't worry about us. We good. We was just in a minor shootout.
I turned around to see Gideon, Teeny, and a few other men I had never met standing behind us with grins on their tired faces. Caleb chuckled.
Oh, man, my fault. Look, y'all alright? Man, I don't know what came over me.
Caleb replied. Gideon grunted.
Yeah, I know what came over you.
He tossed my husband a coat. After draping it over my shoulders, Caleb let my feet slide to the ground.
Let's get out of here, yo.
On the way back through what was left of the house, I looked around surprised at the damage these few men had done. I couldn't help but wonder what kind of destruction would happen if all the Akim came together to fight against an enemy. I shivered. Dear Yah, nothing will be left standing in their wake. On the way back to Gideon's chopper, I told them we needed to stop and help the little girl that was still locked in that room at Dominique's club. When we got there, I showed Caleb and Gideon what room she was in. Gideon hit the door lightly with his hand, and my mouth dropped when the lock just shattered. I turned to look at Caleb, surprised, who just chuckled, shaking his head at me. Aletha cried out when she saw the two big men that stepped into the room. I slid between them and relief washed over her face, so much so that tears came to her eyes. You can go home now, I told her. Really? She didn't believe me, probably because she was intimidated by Caleb and Gideon, whose presence dominated the room. I gently touched Caleb's arm. This is my husband. He came to rescue me and you. That was all she needed to hear. Jumping to her feet, she ran to me and wrapped her arms around me. Gracias, senora. I will never forget you, she whispered, before timidly going around Caleb and Gideon, disappearing out the door. As we walked out the building, panic shot through me. The Akim were standing in front of the door, guns raised. Surrounding them were several vehicles. Standing outside of those vehicles were men with guns pointed at them. Caleb pulled me behind him as Gideon stepped around his men. A door to one of the cars opened and a well-dressed man stepped out. Right off, I could tell he was like Dominique, a drug lord. But where Dominique had been almost clownishly dressed, this man's suit was tailor-made.
Hey, yo, we got a problem, Edgar?
Gideon grumbled. The man smiled, shaking his head as he held up his hands.
No, bro. I don't have no problem with you. I come bearing gifts.
His English was barely understandable.
Then tell your boys to lower their weapons. They beginning to make us feel as if our lives are in danger. And well, then we gonna be forced to protect ourselves.
Edgar gestured for his men to lower their weapons. Only then did the Akim relax, but just slightly.
To thank you for ridding the world of that piece of trash, I bought you a gift.
Gideon chuckled.
Don't thank me too soon. I may be coming for you next. No, bro, not me. Like you, I'm a law-abiding citizen.
His statement not only caused his men to chuckle, it caused the Akeem to chuckle as well, loosening some of the tension that was in the air.
Jose, get him that gift.
Jose was nearly as big as Teeny. Rotating his shoulders, he walked to the trunk of his car and opened it. He reached in and pulled Rashid out, throwing him out on the ground. I felt Caleb's muscles get tense all over.
Hey, yo, nigga, let me catch you. Let me catch you. You dead, nigga.
Rashid yelled toward the giant as he jumped up off the ground. Without saying another word, Edgar and his men got back in their cars and drove off. Rashid whipped around to face his brother.
Kay, bruh. Man, I'm so glad to see you.
Gideon looked back at Kay.
Hey, man, look. We'll meet you at the chopper,
he muttered, before he and the other Akeem got in one of the trucks and drove away. Teeny and the man with the bulletproof vest stayed behind with us before they got into the truck, leaving only Caleb, Rashid, and I standing on the dark, deserted street.
I didn't hear or see anything past the man pulling Rashid out of the trunk of that car. I stood there, waiting for the strength it would take not to kill my brother. But the only thing I could see was Monica's banged up truck that had been hit on the side where Eve's car seat was. Had my daughter been in that seat, she would have not survived the impact. Rage pumped through my veins and filled my vision. My breaths became shallow as my body and mind prepared itself to make the toughest kill it would ever have to make. Okay, man, look, I'm sorry, Rashid said, taking an unwise step toward me. Man, I don't know what's wrong with me. It's my pops. He messed me up. I shook my head. Hey, but you right. I'm done with this shit. I'm done. I shook my head again. Nah, bro. It don't even matter no more. I saw when the change came over him. Before, I would have just thought it was Rashid taking a stand, puffing his little chest up. But because my spiritual eyes had been opened, I saw when the demon settled in on him. He inhaled, expanding his chest in the way that the dam did when they first took over a body. Then a grin settled on his face. What? You gonna kill me now? Caleb the judge, he yelled into the night, still very much sounding like Rashid. You know what, Your Honor? I think it's time for your hypocritical ass to stand trial, he continued. Won't you tell your lovely wife about what really happened to her brother? Shit. When he seen he had hit a mark, his eyes rounded in surprise. Uh-oh. Bet you didn't think that was gonna come up. But what better time to be judged than when you standing there feeling like somehow you right. He spat each word in anger. The entity now controlled him, filled with hate and rage to match my own. I didn't feel sorry for my little brother who had become a host to such a foul being. You see, I just wanted to put them both out their misery. Turn to your wife and tell her how it was you who put the gun to her brother's head and pulled the trigger. He no longer sounded human. He sounded like the filthy serpent he was. Tell her how he begged you not to shoot him. He looked up toward the sky, holding up his hands. Tell her how you emptied the clip, he yelled before he erupted in laughter. I snapped. Before I even knew I was moving, I had his neck in my hands. He grabbed at my arms, but his strength was nothing against my rage. My whole body shook with it as I choked the life out of him. He stared up at me through tear-filled eyes. But that's just it, bruh. You don't get to live happily ever after. He somehow managed to get out of his mouth before he breathed his last breath.